Today we shall be talking about indigenous bankers and the money lenders. Indigenous bankers, they begin with the ancient banking system of medieval India. Long age back, it was just the indigenous bankers who were carrying on the business of lending money and accepting the deposits. Today, we have so many banks. This is how the commercial bank system evolved as of today. Indigenous bankers, they have been carrying on the age-old banking operations in all the parts of our country, and they have various names. Regional names have become popular according to the states. These include the Shahukars, Mahajans, the Seths, Baniyas, Chetis, and the Marwadis. According to the Indian Central Banking Inquiry Committee, an indigenous bank is an individual or private firm. It can be one single person who is carrying out the business, okay, or it can be the private firm as well, which engages in receiving the deposits. Okay, people have extra money, they come to the indigenous bankers, who can be a single person or a private firm, whatever it is, whatever be the case, and you can keep the deposits with them. In those times, there used to be no commercial banks, no reserve bank, nothing like that. So people used to give their deposits to these people so that they can keep this money safe with them. As in when they require money for the marriage purpose or any other function or any other purpose, they can go and get that money back. It used to be safe, kept with them. So this can be considered the first and the prime most function of the indigenous bankers, to receive deposits from the people and keep them safe with them. Second comes, they deal with hundis. Now, what is hundis? Hundis can be somewhat compared with today's bills of exchange, but it is not covered under the Negotiable Instrument Act 1881. It was just an unconditional order on a piece of paper. A person can direct the other person to pay a certain sum of money. So just to understand the meaning, like what bills of exchange purpose does today, it used to be called hundis at that moment of time. Okay, and apart from that, they used to engage in lending money, not only receiving money, but they also used to lend money for XYZ purpose, whatever you want. So this was in a nutshell what indigenous bankers were. Now, they were very popular. Why were they so popular? They play an important role in financing internal trade. Okay, the growth of commercial banks as of today, they have pushed them on the backstage. The indigenous bankers are no longer so important and significant today, but still they control a good deal of financial business. Now, as far as internal trade is concerned, we consider that in these indigenous bankers, they used to play a very important role. And even today also, in certain parts of the country, you can say that indigenous bankers, they finance internal trade. Okay, you have to approach the banks every now and then, submit the relative documents regarding, fulfill all the formalities, and indigenous bankers, they don't require any such compulsion documents. Okay, so just to finance internal trade, you need money, you just go to the indigenous bankers and they give you. So it's an important role. They help in evolving the commerce by financing this type of trade. See, they provide prompt and flexible credit. You have to wait for, okay, 2 days, the document has been sent to the main head office branch. Let us register your case, let us monitor it. One person will come and view the site, nothing like that. It's very prompt. Immediately you can get the credit, and flexible credit. You don't have to comply by those so and so rules, so and so conditions, this rate of interest, that rate of interest. There are so many parts of it. No, it's a flexible credit. What do you want it for? You want it for this purpose? You want it right now? Okay, take. This is very flexible and it is prompt. Now, micro productive units, they get loan which are not covered by the commercial banks. Here I mean to say very small units. They don't have anything to mortgage. They don't have documents. They are not learned enough to prepare the files. So those productive units, they can easily get loans from the indigenous bankers. These indigenous bankers, they maintain cordial relationship with their customers. Now, who is an indigenous banker? He can be any money lender who is living 2 houses away from your house, or house next lane. So there's a very cordial relation. They belong to the same community where you are. They are living in the same locality. You know them from ages. So that is a very friendly relation. Okay, now they remain in touch with the problems and the financial conditions of the customers. So it is not that you have to report to somebody in New Delhi, or you have to go and submit the case to the head office of the branch, nothing like that. Because they are living with you in your community, in your locality, they are well aware about your problems and financial conditions, what happens to the monsoon, what happens if the crop doesn't come out very good. So all these things, they are well acquainted with the customer. Now see, they act as friends and advisors to the customers. They are very well friendly. They are very well advisory role also they play to their customers. So these are the basic reasons why we say that indigenous bankers, they are very popular among people. Now what functions do they do? If you want on the tips, the first is for the nodes. They accept deposits. This is the first and the primary function. Whenever you hear the term bank, what does the bank do? Bank does do this only, right? So the indigenous bankers also, they accept deposits. See, two types of deposits are accepted from the public. The first is the deposits which are repayable on demand. Whenever you need it, you will get it back. So on demand, it is just on the demand. If I say that I have this 10,000 rupees and I'll be needing them right after 5 days, so after 5 days I can go and pick the money back. Okay, so there are no terms and conditions, there are no rules and regulations, there is no writing, nothing like that. Okay, so repayable on demand as and when you say. The second is the deposits which are repayable after a fixed period. Okay, I have the wedding in my house after say 6 months, right? Or after 1 year, I'll take it after 1 year, all right. The rate of interest paid by the indigenous bankers is higher than paid by the commercial banks. So this is an offer which people really enjoy because the rate of interest is higher. Second function of the indigenous bankers is to advance loans. The loans are advanced to the customers against all type of securities. It could be land, crops, the standing crops can be well mortgaged, gold, silver, whatever. The loan is also advanced against the personal security. They are given to small industrialists who cannot fulfill the necessary loan conditions of the commercial banks. So the loans are advanced against any type of security. You don't have to get the bank manager to your house. You don't have to fulfill any conditions, no paper documentation, nothing like that. Okay, so accepting deposits and advancing loans, important ones. Next comes the business in hundis. As I told you what hundis are, it's just like similar to bill of exchange, not exactly the bill of exchange in which a person gives in writing that I have to pay this much money to the other person. This is a striking feature of the indigenous bankers. They write hundis, they buy hundis, and as well they sell hundis. They can buy a hundi from anybody and give them the money, and the hundi will be theirs, and they can get it encashed. They discount hundis, right? You discount bills of exchange from the bank these days, and they can also discount the hundis. They meet the financial needs of the internal traders. So whatever this trade is going on in the rural areas, credit to the indigenous bankers. They also transfer funds from one place to another through discount of hundis. Although this system has been barely been nominal in the age of ATMs and the cards and the credit cards and the plastic money, everything is going on so fast. But still, if you want to discuss this indigenous hundis, it can be one of the points. They deal with hundis. Now, hundis are of two types. The first is the Darshini hundi or the sight hundi, which is actually payable on demand, and Muddati hundi, which is payable after a certain period of time. So the difference lies in the time period. Next comes the non-banking functions performed by the indigenous bankers. They have the retail trading business. They also do the retailing. They participate in speculation activities. They also act as agents to large commercial firms and earn their commission. So they can also enter into business, but basically it is a trade in speculation. The aim is to earn commission. Now comes the defects of the indigenous bankers. If we talk about their functions, we discussed that they give loans, they accept deposits. Then what is the fault? What is the defect in them? They mix banking and non-banking functions. Because they combine both type of functions, it is against the principle of sound banking. When they enter into trade, so they have this taboo that they may go into speculation. So if they keep their business just to banking, they can be more sound, they can be more trustworthy. just because they mix both of them. Second is their banking system is literally unorganized. It is totally segmented. The various indigenous bankers operate separately and independently. One is going in that direction, the other one is going in its own direction. There is a lack of coordination and there is no link, bonding with the other banking sectors. Transfer of funds is not possible under such a system. Now, transfer of funds will take place only when there is a transparency and there is a trustworthiness, right? Because it is unorganized, it is segmented, there is no coordination, so it's very difficult to manage the transfer of funds. Next is the insufficient capital. They mainly depend upon their own capital or the capital from the family members and the relatives. Their source of funds is whatever they have saved, their forefathers have saved, or from their family and relatives if they have excess money. The financial resources, they are insufficient to meet the demand of the borrowers. Obviously, if you want to grow on a large scale, the banking business has to expand. You have to have large capital. Only then you can grow. So they are sufficient, their source is only very limited. So we can say that it is insufficient capital, which is one of the major defects of the indigenous banking system. Next comes the higher rate of interest. They charge higher rates of interest from their borrowers than those charged by the commercial banks. It is but natural that these high rates adversely affect them. Why will people prefer you? People will prefer commercial banks no matter. They have to walk a little, but still the rate of interest is low. So why not commercial banks, right? Now, according to quote Sir Daniel Hamilton, the secret of successful industry is to buy your finance cheap and to sell your product dear. This is how you will be successful. When you are buying your finance, buy it cheap and your produce is to be sold expensive. This is how you will earn. The Indian buys his finance dear and sells his produce cheap, which is doing the vice versa. His creditor generally fixes the price for both. So this is a very sad picture which is shown out here for the Indian person, that he buys his finances dear and sells his produce cheap, and rationally, it should be otherwise. Next is meager deposit business. The main business of indigenous bankers is to give loans and deal in hundis. But this deposit business is very small. They do not mobilize the savings of the general people. Call it their speculation activities or their taboo that they may cheat on you, whatever. They are not able to mobilize the savings of the general public. They are not able to, gain the trust of the people. People like to keep it at their home rather than give it to them. So the deposit business is very nominal. Then comes the defective lending. They generally do not follow the sound banking principles while granting loans. Generally, they provide loans against insufficient securities or even against personal securities. Now, when you move to a bank, the bank will first access your property. According to that, only the loan will be granted. But in this case, even if the security is insufficient, you will be granted the loan. The credit is also extended against immovable properties. There is no distinction between short-term and long-term loans. So it's a nutshell. It's just gola gala, and in that only the defective lending takes place. Next comes, they are given unproductive loans. They do not pay attention to the purpose for which the loan is used. They generally give loan for the unproductive and speculative activities, for paying interest and to pay off old debts. If you are providing loan for unproductive purposes, you are pushing the borrower in the vicious circle of poverty. Why? Because if you are having some factory in hand, some business venture in hand, which will give you profits, out of that profit you will be paying off the interest. But here, just to pay your old debts, you are taking a fresh loan. So that is called unproductive loan, which will not give you any profit. It will just give you debts and debts. Secrecy of accounts, they do not get their accounts audited. They do not publish their annual balance sheets. They keep secrecy of accounts, which raises suspicion in the minds of people. Just as I told you, they are not able to have full trust of the people. Exploitation of the customers also generally takes place. They indulge in malpractices and exploit their customers. They make unauthorized deductions from the loans because generally people are illiterate. They misuse their illiteracy. They overstate the amount of loans in the document. They sometimes do not give receipt against the payment receipts. They also refuse to take the payment. They have already taken the payment and they now don't accept the fault. So all these exploitation of customers, you must have seen it so many times in Hindi movies also. This takes place with the indigenous bankers. There is no control of the Reserve Bank. The Reserve Bank cannot regulate their activities. Indigenous bankers are a great hurdle in the way of creating an organized money market in the country. If you want pan-India organized money market, these should be shed off. They should go off the air. Only then people will come to the commercial banks. But because they are just next door, the indigenous bankers, they are cordial, they know them very well. So that's why the indigenous bankers system still flourishes. Discouragement to the bill market, indigenous bankers, they also stand in the way of developing a proper bill market in the country. They often give cash loans, right? So these are the disadvantages or the defects. Now comes another terms, the money lenders. Money lender term is different from indigenous bankers. How? The main business of money lenders is to lend money from own funds. Just as the name suggests, they lend the money. They generally do not accept the deposits and engaged in the lending business just as indigenous bankers do. They have nothing to do to accept the deposits. Only lending of money is the prima facie function. They usually carry on their business in the rural areas, okay, because they don't have rural people, they don't have access to banks and ATMs. So therefore, lending of money, the main business in the rural areas is that of money lenders. The borrowers from money lenders are usually illiterate and from economically weaker sections of the society. They don't have that exposure to go to the bank, to fill the form, to talk to the banker, and they are the main drawback or the main hurdle here is illiteracy. So that is why this money lending business is flourishing, because weaker sections of the society, first of all, they are poor, and secondly, they are uneducated. The loans from money lenders are exploitative in nature. The loans are unregulated. They are being charged higher rates, and sometimes still higher is written on the paper because the people can't read it. So this goes on goes. The credit provided by the money lenders may be secured or unsecured. They usually lend unsecured loans as well. The lending operations are prompt, informal, and flexible. So there is no formality to be done, no no file has to be deposited, no documents have to be prepared, and immediately upon your wish, prompt, you need it today, you'll get it today. This is how it works. Now let's discuss some of the differences between the money lenders and the indigenous bankers. Indigenous bankers, they accept deposits and give loan. Both the works happen here, but money lenders, they do not accept deposits. Main business is just to lend money, to give loans. Indigenous bankers, they do deal in hundis. These people, money lenders, they do not deal in hundis. They conduct the business in cash. That is it. Generally lend for trade purposes. The indigenous bankers, they lend money for the trading. These people, money lenders, they generally lend for consumption purpose as well, which is why the poor are just thrown into the vicious circle of poverty, because there is no productivity for the purpose for which they are taking loan. Indigenous bankers are largely urban based and money lenders are generally rural areas. Now, let's classify the money lenders. There are the professional money lenders and non-professional money lenders. The main source of income of the professional money lenders is the lending of money. They don't indulge in any other business. They just, their way of living, how do they earn? They earn by lending money. Now, they can be resident money lenders and the itinerant money lenders. Resident money lenders, they live there only, the one place. They are the Maharajas, the Shahukars, the Seths and the Baniyas. And the itinerant money lenders, they keep on moving from place to place. These are the Pathans, Kabulis and the Kishtwalas. Next comes the non-professional money lenders. They combine money lending business with other activities. They don't entirely depend upon money lending activities. Maybe they are entering into trade, they are entering into speculation business or for the trade purpose only. So these people just rely on money lending, but here they have something else business also in hand apart from money lending. Okay, now still, they have some defects which are mentioned out here for the money lenders. They have inadequate resources to meet the financial resources of the rural people. Basically, what is the source of finance? They have their own accumulated wealth or the wealth they are getting from their forefathers, at the most money which the relatives and family and friends. So they have inadequate finance to lend it to people. The loans of the moneylenders are highly exploitative in nature, just as I told you earlier. They adopt malpractices in the business and charge high rate of interest. Clear? The loans are provided for consumption and unproductive purpose. They don't make it a point, as the in the present day scenario, if you want to take a loan from the bank, you'll go to the bank and they'll monitor, why do you need money? What are the chances that you will return my money or not? How will you reap benefit? How will you spend this money of the loan which you are taking it from me? But in case of money lenders, they don't care. Even if you want it for consumption purpose, you want it for marriage, you want it for dowry, whatever, for unproductive purpose, you will be given the loan. That's it. They get unconditional sale deeds from the borrowers and hence reduce them to the position of serfs. Serfs means these poor peasants who are working on land. So they take those sale deeds from the borrowers, they just occupy their land, the poor peasants are left with nothing. The money lenders give loans against standing crops as well. This compels the cultivators to sell their produce at low prices to them because they mortgage the standing crops, and they are these poor people, they are in need of money and they are just exploited by the money lenders, and this is how they poor becomes more poor. Okay, so now this comes to the end of the article. I hope I have explained the things to you nicely. In case you have any doubts, kindly feel free to ask me in the comment section. Please like and subscribe to my channel. Thank you for watching. Stay safe, stay blessed.